Stephen Green. Good to have you here. What do you want to focus on? Because we could talk about any other thing. What do you want to talk about this stuff? And there could be a part 2 and a part 3.
Right now, I'm feeling like small is big, or just like the little things, or we go into like the group chat conversation of like, here are the 15 fucking things that I wish people knew, but they just don't. And so that was part of like the LinkedIn post I did the other day.
Yep.
Like, folks, stop doing these 8 things.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we're in that phase again in the community where like the folks who have experience they hit that point where they just kind of detach from community. Either they're burnt out or they like are heads down on their own thing. And I feel like we have a lot of we always have a lot of people trying to figure out what they're doing and where to go and who to talk to.
Yeah, I want to be able to quickly and easily parse the difference between the people that want to build something and solve a problem and the people that just want likes and follows and to feel important.
Yeah. Well, and what's your usual barometer for that?
I'll ask, like, what problem are you looking to solve?
Yeah.
And why are you the one? Why should I trust you to do it?
Yep.
And 2, like the other like back end way of asking that is like, what would you do for free? What would you go out and like, if you only had green lights?
Yep.
What would you be working on right now? Where would you be putting your time, talent, and treasure?
Yeah.
There's a business in there somewhere.
Right.
And once you get past that gate, then you can start talking about the other things. Like, I was on a call with a filmmaker yesterday, and she made a dope kick-ass film that she doesn't charge people for. And so she's like, oh, I've had these really, great screenings. Hundreds of people came. I was like, great. Like, how much money did you make?
Zero.
Yeah.
Why do you think she didn't charge? Just didn't think that? Or just
no. She's like, I'm learning this. I'm working on something. I'm trying to get better at something. And so I think you see it, especially with people that are doing service or trade or craft things.
Yep.
They, it's like, I've only done this twice. Why would anyone pay me for this?
Right.
Versus being on the customer side and then being like,
yeah,
this is dope. Yeah. And generally no one's heard of the idea of implied value, where it's like, if you give me a thing for free, I'm going to kind of think it's shitty.
Yeah. Is that a unique to Portland experience, or do you encounter that elsewhere?
I don't think so. I think, it's hard putting yourself out there, because if you put a price on something, I mean, that's, you're being, you're really putting yourself out on the limb to hear no. And I think that's one of the things in this new technology driven world is like, people don't deal with no anymore, right? Like when we were growing up, like there was no match, apps for dating. Like you had to be like, that person's cute. I like their vibe. Yeah. Now, am I willing to muster walking across the room and being like, do you want to go roller skate with me?
Totally.
Yeah. And you heard no a lot. And then you just, deuces, shot my shot. But now people don't shoot their shot because everything's, there's an app that, I swiped left, so I never had to hear no.
Right.
Right. Versus I think part and parcel of being a founder and building something is like the curiosity to hear no.
Yes.
And treat that as a blessing. Right. And like, feedback's always great.
But it took me the longest time to get to the point where I could take no objectively. Like, and there's some, like, I had to make some emotional separation from it where it's like, no is just a data point and yes is just a data point. And you're trying to like figure out how to navigate among those data points. But it's like any feedback is good feedback.
If you're working towards solving a problem.
Yeah.
And making a business.
Yeah.
If this is just a hobby and I want, Steven's emotional well-being is tied to this.
Yeah.
Then you don't need to hear no, because this was never about selling something or solving a problem. It was just about me. And we need those kind of things in our life.
Sure.
But you don't confuse, a wellness activity with building a business and solving a problem for customers.
Right. Yeah, I've been like really encountering, and maybe it's the hangover from the pandemic, but a lot more, or it could be consumer products, like a lot more people who are taking like a hobby or something they love to do, and they're trying to convert it into a business, which I'm always like, that's a recipe for burnout, because like, unless you recognize that you're actually building a business, that's never gonna satisfy those same, if anything, at least in my experience, it takes the fun thing away and makes you do all the other unfun stuff. And the thing you love so much, you don't get to focus on anymore.
I don't know, it's hard because let's say you're passionate about making beer.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Let's say non-alcoholic, because there's regulatory kombucha. There's a world where, yeah, like once a month you go to a farmer's market and you sell whatever you sell.
Yep.
You know, you're bringing in some money, like,
right.
You got customers. You're not building a business, so to speak. And so, you know, who are those people that can sit people back and be like, all right, so we're going to move from you getting better at your craft to you building a business that has competitors and problems you're trying to solve and distribution and all of these things that have little to nothing to do with you getting better at your craft.
Right.
And I think people, by and large, they want to avoid that kind of stuff early on in building a business. So just let me do the thing that I want to do. But building a business is like being curious about customers and users and knowing the difference between the two.
And I mean, I think like that was always our question back in the Pi days, was like, do you want this product to exist? Because that's one motivating factor. Or are you interested in building a business which may or may not involve that product existing or surviving? And for a lot of the folks we were working with, like, that was a really hard question. We didn't have a lot of like business driven people. We had a lot of people who were like, I need this thing. I built this thing. I need this thing. Somebody told me they'd maybe pay me for it, but they weren't really like motivated by the business side of things.
Yeah. I think the other thing is like, how do we build more playgrounds for people to dip their toe in and have honest conversations around it? Because it can be successful to figure out like, no, I don't want to do this. Great. Let's celebrate that.
Right.
Just as much as the person who's the next Salt and Straw or whatever.
Yeah.
That's just not what we do on social media or in articles, right? We don't celebrate someone, you know, making $2,000 and then being like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, we were like in the conversation Juan and I had, we kind of had like a similar discussion about like the prevailing mythology around building businesses is all focused on raising money and being a big deal and being $1 billion company. And there are thousands of companies around who've been employing the same people for 20 years at a good living wage, and they're contributing to the tax base. And that's like a huge win from a community perspective, but nobody's celebrating that level of activity as much as they could.
Yeah, there's no article in Inc. magazine about that boring business that employs 50 people for, you know, 2 generations.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and I don't, that's a hard storyline to work against, but it is also, especially for Portland, like I feel like that's a really strong storyline here that we've never told terribly well.
Yeah, and I think also there's, I think a lot of newly minted folks who they buy into this idea of validation of my idea means getting press.
Yep.
As opposed to doing more research and going away from the shiny stuff and realizing, oh, wow, 99.7% of businesses never raise any equity. 70+% of businesses never get a loan. Like, the normal average investor is this thing called customer.
Right.
And you do that, you know, you get more of them and do it more profitably all the time. Like that's the simple, not easy thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just not glamorous.
Well, and like coming at it from like the media side of it, like no one's clicking on that story either. So it's this weird vicious cycle where it's like, oh, I know if I put something about somebody raising a lot of money, a lot of people are going to pay attention to that. They're going to share that. They're going to, they're going to highlight that story as a example of what could be done.
Yeah.
But like, if you write stuff about just like, hey, this person's been, slow and steady, doing great, people are like, yeah.
I mean, I oftentimes ask people that are really, really new in the journey, like, look up the 100 richest people in Oregon, right? It's like that are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Most of them are like toilet paper, plywood, like super boring. No one at Stanford Business School is thinking about iterating on any of their products.
Right.
They make 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure businesses out of these things that are never in Inc. magazine. And so how do you give people another perspective of like, all right, you're focusing on the very small amount of businesses that are hyper glamorized versus big, like in the reality of business is most of them are really boring businesses that have found an opportunity. They've never used the words innovation at all.
Right.
And they just plugging away year after year, month after month, quarter after quarter.
Well, and I feel like tech is a lot to blame for that storyline too. But speaking of like wealthy people in Oregon, like the only billionaires on Forbes list in Oregon are all consumer products people. They're not tech people.
Yep. And we've talked about this before. How do we go from tech being one of the silos to tech being the thing over all the silos of, like, if you want to create a CPG business, your fastest, cheapest way to do that, leverage technology.
Right.
That doesn't mean C++ or Python or anything like that.
Yep.
But you do know that like the fastest way for me to, get product market fit for my business is leveraging technology in my industry. Cool. I can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a good spot to go back with you. Like you've been in Portland a long time. Like you've seen a lot of stuff. Like take us back to your like through all the things. Like I will start it off with like, I remember you and I like knew one another. Like you were what was then PDC and our paths would cross. Yeah. But the moment it really crystallized for me is when both you and I were on our significant other's dime in Kauai. And we ran into one another in the parking lot randomly. Hey, how's it going? And that kind of started that. So that was my indoctrination into the world of Stephen Green. But like prior to that, I mean, basically your whole life you've been here, except for a few days, right?
Well, I mean, I always spent my summers in Detroit. Yep. So like 9 months here, 3 months there.
Yep.
So, being a background kid in Beaverton in the 80s and 90s, and then spending time in East Side Detroit, my parents always figured, like, I'm the youngest of 5 boys. If you guys can navigate Beaverton in Portland in the 80s and 90s, and then also East Side Detroit, gangs, guns, all the things.
Yep.
Wherever you live as an adult, we'll be somewhere in the middle. But we want you to be prepared to manage both ends of the spectrum. And I think growing up and going to a school that had, I went to a high school that had 2,000 plus kids, less than 10 of them were Black or Latinx.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Never in my whole lifetime being in grade school, middle school, high school, college in Oregon, never had a teacher that was Black or Latino.
Yep.
My whole career.
Yeah.
I got really good at reading people that didn't look like me, and also like navigating rooms with people that don't look like me. And I think that's really a gift now, because I can go into any room and kind of figure out like, oh, the person 2 tables over, not really feeling it with me. Right. And that's cool.
Right.
But I'm able to lean with like a curiosity in reading people versus like, oh, that person's got that tattoo, ergo we're never going to be friends.
Right.
And I got a lot of great people in my life that don't look like me. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of people that grow up East Side Detroit, that's still the most segregated city in the country. Right. So you can go a week and not see a white person East Side Detroit. You can go a week on the west side of Detroit, and now I see a black person.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. In Chocolate City. And so, having that as a kid, the constant questions of like, what are you? Are you black? Are you Latino?
Yeah.
And thankfully my parents were like, you're Steven.
Yeah.
Whatever that means today, but don't let somebody else tell you what that means. And both my parents were founders, right? So like my dad was a high school dropout, went into the military, somehow found a way to be at Intel in the 70s and 80s, and then left there and started his own business where Intel was his largest client.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then my mom was a software engineer, brilliant, like valedictorian in high school.
Mm-hmm.
The world was her oyster. And she went into technology and, started a company and had this crazy idea of people signing up for their insurance online in the 90s. Crazy. That's no paperwork. That's crazy. And so, I had a front row seat of, people that looked like me doing cool things that maybe didn't match the tropes of what people think about. But like, I've always known black and brown people in technology here. And so, when it comes to, the stuff that's happening now, I'm like, this isn't new. You're not the first one.
Yeah.
And so I've been able to tell myself another story and see another story play out that I think oftentimes other people haven't had.
Yeah. So what did you take away from like your parents' experience? Like what did that, as a child, as the youngest, like what did that really, how did that influence you?
My dad was a collector of people. So
yep.
My dad had a really, really, really eclectic set of friends. He had Vietnam veteran friends that he went and shot guns with. Then I would go do that, who I'm sure were like crazy Republican people, but like, they were authentic, great, friends of our family. Mm-hmm. And on the other side of that, like my dad started a program at Intel that exists today where they bring engineering students to Intel to be interns every summer from historically black colleges.
Yep.
And so I think from him, I saw the value of, really social capital and seeing that play out.
Yeah.
And then my mom was just a force and brilliant and like nothing deterred her from the things she wants to do. Nothing at all.
Yeah.
And she wasn't crazy vocal about it. It was just the way that she carried herself. Mm-hmm. I mean, to this day, she still has that aura about her. And so, growing up as kids, there was never a thing that we would dream of doing or want to do where we would ever think, we don't do that.
Yeah.
We can't do that.
Yep.
No, that was just never a thing.
Yeah.
And so I think between the two of them, it really set a great foundation for a career in a world that's very different than the world they grew up in, right? Like my dad was, grew up spending some time in the Jim Crow South where there was doors literally he couldn't walk into. Right.
Yeah.
And then my mom, being from Puerto Rico and growing up in New York and then San Francisco, like just a different world. And so I think that laid the path for the opportunities that the five of us had.
How did Portland come into the mix?
So, I was born halftime when the Blazers won the championship in '77. My dad was a Sixers fan, so that was a tough day for him. So glad that he had me to blunt the sadness. But there's five of us, two parents.
Yep.
San Francisco, we lived in the hate. Expensive, and so my mom had an opportunity to work at Intel, and so that's what brought us up here. And then she promptly hired my dad not too long after that, which is, I'm waiting for her to tell that story sometime. But she's got literally the offer letter framed on the wall from her to my dad.
Nice.
And so we ended up here, but very quickly, even though we lived in Aloha, Northeast Portland, where we're at right now, was the place where we're at with friends and who would become family. So we have no blood family in Portland, but I got a ton of family here.
Yeah.
And so I saw the value of like collecting people, and that, you know, blood was a very real thing, but like who you choose may or may not be even more important.
Right.
And so we collected these people that became the backbone of our lives here. And, you know, I saw my parents, you know, build stuff with other Black and brown folks. And so I think that, you know, of course paints, you know, how I see opportunities and what community will show up going forward.
Yeah.
And though they were in technology, like technology was never something that ran true for me. You know, I collected baseball cards and I made my own. I didn't know there were spreadsheets, but I would use gridded paper and like plot out the value of my Wade Boggs at this point in time, then months later. And, you know, I'm sure my parents were just like, this kid is weird. And so, you know, going to college and studying economics and then, you know, being a financial advisor, it just kind of all made sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the more I travel, I get to travel a lot, and I've always, you know, spent a lot of time in Detroit where most of my family is.
Yeah.
And it gives true perspective on how great Portland is. And even though, you know, no place is perfect.
Right.
I like the small, big town feel here.
Yeah.
And like how we're all connected. Yeah. You know, you can know 2 or 3 people and know everybody. Which is great, unless you're doing bad things, because then everybody knows real quick you're doing bad things.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm honestly surprised no one has come up to like, hey, Steven, yet. Like, given where we are, like, you can be anywhere in town, and that happens with you, but I'm surprised that hasn't happened yet.
Hey, I love it. I mean, I think, you know, I'll be here in 30 years, maybe in the ground somewhere, but I'll be here in 30 years.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to see how community changes over time. Like, as a kid, we didn't spend time in this park. We weren't allowed to go in this park. And I almost died in a drive-by.
Oh, wow.
4 blocks down the street.
Yeah.
I was getting my hair cut. But now here we are, hanging out on a Friday afternoon. Yeah. We haven't heard any gunshots.
No gunshots. Neighborhood change. Got a pickup game going over there. Yeah. Speaking of pickup game, like, one of the things that was really important to me in my upbringing was being an athlete.
Oh, yeah.
And I always think about, like, how did that influence me? How did that team dynamic versus, like, because I did both team and individual sports. Like, I know you were an athlete, still are an athlete. Playing golf on a regular basis, that's a sport.
Yeah.
But, like,
let's call it that. Yeah.
Did that influence you from, like, either to today, or like how you interacted with people and how you collected people? Was sports part of that, or was that just a phase?
I mean, I think when you're the youngest of 5 boys, whether you want to or not, like you're playing sports, you're making up sports, you're doing whatever. Yeah. 2 of my brothers were Division I athletes in football. You know, an uncle, NFL Hall of Famer. My dad was a great athlete. But I worked hard and I'm really competitive. I wasn't a crazy athlete. And so for me, sports was a way of meeting people and like, you know, where I had my best friends. And so I loved playing, you know, football in high school and college. But I think about the people. I don't think about the games or what the win-loss record was or anything like that.
Right.
But I also think about like how sports taught me how to compete, how to communicate with people.
Yep.
You know, how to handle adversity. And especially in college when like every spring there's people coming for your position, literally. Yeah. Coach would be like, we've got 8 new people that want to be in one of the linebacker spots. Who's giving up their spot? And then you're like, all right. But I was there on an academic scholarship. And so it was a choice to play versus having to play.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it was really tough seeing people that their only way to get through college is to play a sport.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't want to play it anymore, which was a reality of sports that I didn't know existed until I was in college.
Yeah.
And so, you know, having a son that wants to go play college sports now, we have these very real talks of like, hey, it's not just, you know, a season, it's year round and there are always people gunning for you. And like every rep is competition.
Yeah.
And either you're you're okay with that stress, or you're going to find something else that you're more passionate about.
Yeah.
Both are okay.
Right.
But just know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I was really happy when my kids were kind of like, I don't think I'm sports. I'm like, good. Yeah. There's a lot of good there, but there's also a lot of like unhealthy there.
There is. I will say sports now is different than when we were kids.
Yeah.
Like, just, toxic masculinity and all those things, and all the terrible tropes, and that doesn't get into like the physical injuries and concussions and stuff like that. Right. Football is very different now than when I played in high school or in college, and in a very good way in most of the ways. But sports, regardless of what it is, competition. You could be doing chess. Like,
right.
I think it helps young people learn how to deal with failure, learn what competition looks and feels like, and handle that, when their blood pressure starts to go up, and not run away from that and be like, oh, we got to stop that.
Yeah.
But go and be like, oh, this is actually might be a good thing. Yeah. That I'm feeling a little juice. And so, how do you let them do that and do it in a safe way where they learn from it? And are able to, both my wife and I were college athletes. And so it's good to be able to talk to our kids, about sports and the good things and some of the negative things, and also give them the freedom to be like, when you're not passionate about this anymore, cut it off, move on to something else.
Yeah.
Like, we're not gonna, do you want to do chess? We will be there and cheer you on and act a fool.
Well, yeah. And it was like, for me, it was the consistency. It was like the practice was what was the big thing for me. Is it just like, you may be having a good day, you may be having a bad day. You still got to go to practice. You still got to get in there and get that stuff done. And, that it really gave me the ability to focus on like longer term outcomes than just immediate like satisfaction to something.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was probably the hardest part. And I remember in college, you'd be in the middle of the spring. And so you're 6, 7, 8 months from the start of the season.
Right.
And you're getting up 5 a.m, going to work out, whatever. And I remember our coach would say, like, 99% of the time you're with us, it's not a game. Yeah, it's practice, it's workouts, it's training.
Yep.
Like, you're doing all that just for the 1% of the time.
Yeah.
Where you get 2 hours on a Saturday to play.
Right.
If that. And so it really gave it context. And I think it's similar to like business. Like, you get what you put into, you get on game day what you put in before game day.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's one of the things that I wish, and I want to help more people that are founders understand, is like the preparation involved. And it's not just about, Rick gave me a great pitch deck, and so someone's going to give me a $5 million deck. It's the weeks, maybe months of research and poking and prodding and being curious around what you want to build. Yeah. That leads to having the right information into a pitch deck that will hopefully get you a meeting with somebody who will have a conversation with you about potentially funding your business.
Yeah.
And when people are met with that, a lot of people, I don't think, want to do the 99%. And that's totally okay.
That's fine. Yeah.
But they should be able to manage expectations and know that Fast Company article where somebody raised off of a pitch deck isn't really, that's not what happened, right? And maybe Rick raised off of his pitch deck, but what they didn't put in the story was Rick has built and sold 5 other companies, and he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
And so he was raising off of what he did before, not the pitch deck.
Yeah. Or like Rick's parents were friends with the people who did the thing with the stuff, and like, like those parts of the story that always comes out to me in like, for whatever reason, probably because I don't pay a ton of attention to it, but like with like Hollywood stars, where I'm like, wait a second, that's so-and-so's daughter? Like, I had no idea. No wonder they have all those roles. But like that kind of nepotism play there, like that happens in business too. And a lot of people are successful.
I think we want to tell ourselves, especially when it comes to business, like, someone's smarter than me, someone's more accomplished, they went to a better school.
Sure.
Versus like when you're faced with it, it was like, they were just persistent, or they happened to be crossing the street while this other person, when I remember reading Shoe Dog, about Phil Knight, and like, it's littered with like 4 or 5 stories inside of the book where it was like, they should have went out of business, but so-and-so parents wrote a check to allow it to continue forward.
Yep.
It wasn't this like innovation thing. No, you know, and it was good timing as well. But like, you know, his parents paid for him to go live abroad for a year.
Right.
It was just like, that's a crazy reality right there.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, that takes me back to like, when I have conversations about pie, I'm like, everybody's like, oh, pie must have had such a great impact on the, and I'm like, they probably, the founders who are successful coming out of pie probably would have been successful anyway. Like maybe we played some role there. Maybe a mentor said something accidentally, like who knows? But like, you can't claim causality in that world.
No, I mean, it's the same thing with Pitch Black, and like, we cherry pick amazing people.
Sure. Yeah.
That we want to celebrate. Yeah. They go on to raise hundreds of millions of dollars, and yes, I will put that on the the pitch deck for the event, of course. But I just like being part of their journey and, you know, having a beer and checking in every once in a while. But yeah, none of us can take credit. From a pie perspective, like you've seen so much change in the last 2 decades. If you were starting pie today, who would you partner with? Would you do it today? How would it be different?
It's a good question. Like I put it, you know, when we like kind of put a stop to the version of pie we were working on, I was putting a lot of thought to that. And like, again, the initial pie thing with WK was complete fluke. Yeah. So like, if I could have that fluke again, I would definitely take that opportunity. That was a really good one and really a good learning experience. But like, I think what I learned about the way that business actually works, and the biggest mistake I feel like we made with pie, is we were trying to take a founder or founders and somehow teach them every single thing they ever needed to know about business in a very short period of time, rather than really focus on strengths.
Right.
I think if I were doing it again today, it would be like, how do we hone in on identifying that person's role and the strengths they need to be successful in that role, rather than just like inundating them with mentorship from all directions? Because like, we were just trying to get people to do too much while they were already trying to build a business. And like, I don't know that we really ever understood that the mentors were like an area we should have put more focus on. We're so focused on the startups. And in reality, the community that formed almost organically with our mentors was as important, if not more important, than the program itself and the people we encountered. And that it became like, for a time, it was like this soft landing spot. Like somebody had moved to Portland and like, how do I get involved in the startup community? It's like, go mentor for pie. Like that's how you do it. And so those parts I really cherish about that. But again, to the part of your question is like, would you do that again today? I don't know. Like that's not the right.
Yeah. It's a different landscape.
Yeah.
It's a different, and I think there's this huge untapped opportunity leveraging AI to build things faster and get a product out to market faster. And also like post-pandemic, we have a lot more really talented people that live here. You know, they don't just live in Portland. They live in Hood River, they live in Bend. And so, you know, how do we leverage, you know, I've gotten to know the former chief accounting officer for Airbnb. Oh, she lives in Troutdale. Yeah. And brilliant, right? How do you get folks like that plugged in or even know they exist out there?
Yeah.
And help the founders that we talk to go from zero to there's an idea for a business here versus I just want to get better at this thing that I like spending my time on. Yep. I think those are two really healthy, important things. Yep. But know the difference between the two. And I think that's what's fractured right now is people can spend their time talking to different folks and just waiting to hear the answers they want versus like really getting help and deciding go, no go on something. Yeah.
Well, and like the Airbnb exec, like Portland has so many of those folks, but like I constantly get the question about like, why aren't they more connected in the community? And I'm usually like, because this isn't where they work. Like they're unplugged. They like the community. Their families here.
Yeah.
They love the restaurants and the outdoors and all those kind of things. But like, we can't ask people to be working all the time or engage in a work way. Yeah. And so like, that's where I consistently struggle is like, how do we engage those people in a way that is compelling to them, but also beneficial to the community? And I haven't really figured that out yet.
Part of me thinks at a Kids Co we did a book called 100 Diverse Voices on Parenting.
Okay.
And it was meant to be a new non-toxic, non-patriarchal version of what to expect when you're expecting.
Yeah.
And so we talked to 100 parents around the world.
Yep.
And they all gave their 1 or 2 gems on what it meant to be a parent. I mean, I wonder about 100 diverse voices on being a founder or building a startup.
Yeah.
Right. Where, I'm not asking, the former CAO at Airbnb to spend hours with somebody, but like, okay, if there's one thing you got 10 minutes to tell somebody, like one thing, what is it?
Yeah.
That goes in the book.
Right.
You know what I mean? Do that 99 more times. I think you got something pretty good there.
Yeah. Well, but like, yes. And there's something there also with like the level of trust that you were able to develop as part, or is developing as part of that relationship, right? Like where it's like you time and time again, you are so good at getting to a trusted relationship with somebody where like, I mean, I'm not a high-powered exec, but you asked me to do, you like, hey, I need you to meet with so-and-so. I'm like, okay, let's do it. Like I realize that you value my time and understand other people in a way to connect those dots. And I sometimes feel like we don't have as much of that activity as the community needs.
I think that's hard for this upcoming generation. Like time is time is such an important ingredient.
Yep.
In any relationship, right? And so when you have people that live their lives 7 minutes at a time, they don't want to hear like, just go do that job for 3 years.
Right.
Don't ask for a raise. Don't ask for more. Just go and do that thing for 3 years.
Yeah.
And people get it from a standpoint of like, if you want to become a gymnast or an Olympian, like if you said go and spend 3 years, they'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But to be a founder or to build the foundation for being a founder, go spend 3 years working at
Yeah.
And so I don't think there's a shortcut for that. And I think
no,
where you and I have gotten is not because I am smart or know things that you don't know. It's that for the last decade plus, there's a track record of all the little bits and bobs that culminate to a bucket of trust. And it's like, oh yeah, of course, I'll do that.
Yeah.
When you're doing something, I don't ask what it is. I just say, when do I need to do that? Right. If it's somebody I don't have a relationship with, I'm going to want a lot more information.
Right.
But that's built over time. And there's not a short, a way of, shortchanging that.
Yeah. Yeah. The go work somewhere for 3 years, like that technique always reminds me of Fresh Roberts. Like he was the best at like, I don't understand this part of business as much as I would like to. I'm just going to go get a job and work at that role and figure out how it works and do all this thing. Like, I'm like, I don't see how you do that so consistently time and time again, but it's led to him being a better, more thoughtful founder and understanding different aspects of the business that somebody who just puts their head down and tries to make it happen doesn't have that same level of exposure.
I think there's a difference between a plan and a strategy. And like, there's a difference between being busy and working towards something, right? So like, you could run on a treadmill for miles if you haven't gone anywhere. Right. And I think the difference between a plan is what you did. A strategy is something, how we're going to win.
Yep.
Right. And I think a lot of people get caught up in like, well, I've done all these things, but you don't have a strategy of how you're going to win.
Yeah.
And so in order to know how to win, you got to know who your competitors are. And, you know, I was meeting with a wannabe founder 2 weeks ago, and he pitched me on an idea. He wanted to help businesses, and he had never talked to people that ran those kind of businesses. And so I was just like, it seems like we're missing something here. You want to solve something for a population you've never actually talked to before.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost you anything besides time to go and meet with 10 people that run those kind of businesses.
And potentially rejection again. Like that's
the thing. And I think that's the big thing that we have to get to. And so, you know, we had a long conversation, and he just blew me off.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't telling him what he wanted to hear.
Right.
All right.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
So, I mean, there are like, you do encounter that a lot, I think, but it's also like, that's something they have to go through as well, because I can imagine if that person stays on that path, will fail at some point, and then we'll be like, oh, I remember when you had the good advice that I ignored. Like that's part of like the growth as well. Like I think to be a founder, you have to be pretty naive. I think it's hard to be a serial leader.
Yeah, no, I think you got to be smart enough to know it's a good idea, but dumb enough not to say no, right? Because if you know too much, you're like, why would I leave a 6-figure job where I get a check every week to go in a debt?
Benefits and all that stuff.
But I think being a founder also takes like a serious sense of curiosity versus, well, I'm right because it was my idea.
Right. Yep.
And if you don't have curiosity and just like are someone who's persistent, doesn't matter how smart you are. Doesn't matter how good your idea was, because you're never going to be focused on your customers. Right. You're never going to be curious about, you know, how things are changing and evolving for them.
Yeah. That were my, like, that one of the toughest learnings I had in business when I worked for startups. And when I first started out, I was super precious about every idea I had. And like, if an exec took that idea, ran with it, got credit for, I'd get super pissed off. Like, that's my idea.
Right.
But then I eventually got to the point where I'm like, A, if you really want to own the idea, execute on the idea. And B, the idea came to fruition. It doesn't matter the path it took to fruition.
Because if you're really focused on the problem that's solving the problem, doesn't matter.
Fixed.
Who was there? Yeah. There's a guy that works in private equity here, and I was his banker back in the day, and I remember we were meeting with another business, and we sat down, and the person we were meeting with gave us some NDAs, and so like I went to read it, and he just flipped it back to him. He was like, I don't sign NDAs. And I was like, I don't sign NDAs? Why don't we sign NDAs? And he was like, here's the reality. There's 3,000 other people that have the exact same idea you have.
Yep.
1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of you will actually move forward with it at the same time.
Right.
The last thing I want to do is have you try and sue me because the person that already had the idea in Denver went forward with it, and you saw that I was in Denver at a conference.
Right.
So I'm just not going to sign this.
Yep.
And if you're not okay with that, you don't need my time.
Right.
And I haven't signed an NDA since.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, everybody's got an idea.
Right.
I mean, how often are you sitting there, something goes on TV, and you're like, I thought about it 3 years ago. Thought about it.
It's my idea.
Yeah. That's my idea.
Yeah. On the NDA stuff, I'm the same way, but my whole premise for that is like, you're coming to me asking for help or connections to like people who can help. If I can't talk about your idea, there's no use in us talking, because like that's how I get you the the help or the connections that you need.
Well, and it's such an interesting mindset to be really precious about something that you want to build, where it's like, I want help and I want people to show me how to do this thing, but I also, I don't want to share it out loud. And so one of my friends, Harold Hughes, he's always talking about like, share, like the best thing you can do is like share it broad and far. Because if all you have is an idea, you weren't going anywhere anyway.
Right.
And so inevitably in sharing, somebody's going to poke a hole in it or have you see it from another perspective that you wouldn't have gotten without, them chiming in. And and why keep yourself from that?
Yeah. And like 9 times out of 10, you become, the more you socialize it, the more you become that person where like somebody else hears that idea and they're like, oh, that's Harold's idea. You should go talk to him. He's working on that. Like it kind of like, it kind of builds the brand of you and what you're trying to accomplish by socializing things. Yeah. I think people sometimes forget that like, well, the very first startup I built was very much that I'm not telling anybody. I'm the target market. I know what I need to do. And by the time we got through building the product, I was like, I don't even want to use this. I hate this product. So I was like, I wish I had talked to more people early in the day, because once we put it out, like so many people were like, what are we supposed to do with this? I don't get it. And I'm like, okay. And then I realized like our target market was like inaccessible and like all these words. Whereas if I just started socializing it earlier, people would have gone, no one needs that. Yeah. Don't do that thing. But yeah.
I love doing an exercise when I have staff. Thankfully I don't have staff right now. I do have staff right now. Dang it. Called the stoplight exercise. Where I say stop, start, continue.
Sure.
What are some things you feel like we should start doing, we should stop doing, and we should continue doing here in Portland?
Here in Portland, I mean the stop doing for me is like the pitch event. Like it's not a pitch. You're right. It's a pitch competition, I think, is the key way. Like pitch events. I love, like, you want to stand up and tell me about what you're doing? I will listen to as many of those as you can put on stage. But like, if you start putting a dollar value on like this and that and the other thing, and this one's getting investment and this one's not, then I'm like, what do you do? Like, that's not helpful.
Right.
And so like, that's the thing I would stop. I would start, like, I would love to start something for both founders and potential investors that educate them on the reality of what those roles are and who it's applicable to and those kind of things. Like, I feel like there's a consistent gap in knowledge on both sides. We have founders who think VC is the one and only way to do things, and they don't understand even how VC works. That's an educational hurdle. And then we have a lot of like working wealthy people who are not only like well off enough to be investors, but they bring great insights and knowledge to business, who could be really effective collaborators, but they don't think of themselves as having that potential. Because like, oh, I never worked in startups, or like, I never built a business of my own, so I'm just going to invest in a third beach house instead of putting $10,000 into somebody's company. Like that kind of educational. And then the continue is the keep showing up. Like, even for me, like, even if the event is wrong, or like I'm not like, that's not really like, I'll keep showing up. I'll still be there, because who knows who else is going to be in the room for that event. That might have been the first thing they heard of.
Right.
And that's the thing that draws them out. And so I talk to people about this a lot since we've all gone to the work from home all day, every day. Like, events used to be a lot easier to attend and a lot easier to get people to attend when we were all sitting in an office all day and being like, oh, 4 o'clock, yeah, I'm out. Yeah.
I got an event. I got to get out of here. But when I'm sitting at home,
The opportunity guys are bigger.
not frictions, man.
It's like, they got to put pants on.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll just text Rick, tell him have fun.
I got beer in the fridge. I'm good. It's all good. Yeah. So yeah, like the showing up is
See showing up.
and like I think I always put some of the onus on me in that back to that value kind of judgment. Like if people aren't showing up, then there's some discrepancy in the value there. I need to figure out the thing that's valuable enough that those people feel like it's worth their time.
Yeah.
And the one size does not fit all. Like the big like networky events work for a certain group of folks, but other folks are like, nah, never do that.
Yeah.
And like the event we did with Clarence, the True event, like some people, that is the level of value they need. It needs to be small, intimate group,
Super surgical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then again, that takes time. Like that there's
It takes time and trust as well, because
Right.
you can't just willy-nilly call somebody you've never talked to before and they're going to fly 2,000 miles to
Right.
come and hang out with you for free.
Right.
And then buy dinner.
Well, and and that is another part of it that it hadn't really dawned on me. Like, I think Clarence thing makes sense because you have a relationship, friendship that you built over a long period of time. And of course that trust is there, but we used to like cheat that process by people would just come to Portland.
Right.
Like they'd be like, oh, I heard Portland's got a great restaurant scene. I'm going to come for the weekend or whatever. And it'd be like, well, while you're here, let's do this. And either I'm not as tuned into it as I used to be, or there's just not as many people who are like showing up randomly in Portland to check things out as we used to have the luxury of having. But back to the onus being on me, like I think we need to cultivate that behavior. Like, and having folks like Clarence be like, oh, I was up in Portland and I talked to some really interesting people, like him socializing that and us bringing more people and doing more of that. I think that's key.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me wonder what, if we're drawing the circles of the startup world, founder world, whatever.
Yeah.
And then the travel Portland tourism hospitality world, where could they overlap?
Totally.
And so part of it makes me think about, all right, if I put myself in that mindset of travel Portland, what are, 15, seated VIP boxes where instead of just sending them to, people at Fortune 500 companies, we're sending them to founders, or we're sending them to, this investment partner at XYZ fund that we know has a good chance of liking the businesses that are here.
Yep.
Or, whatever James Beard Award winning restaurant, they're doing a dinner that's just for investors or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's not even about come have businesses pitch you. It's just like, come to Portland,
Come hang out.
come feel the vibe here.
Yeah.
You're going to like it.
Yeah.
I do wonder if people are still coming, but they're coming to other parts of Oregon as well, and not just Portland.
Yep.
Right. Like being in Bend a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So this place is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Hard to beat, easy to get to. Now there's some direct flights going there. And so there's a lot of other parts of Oregon that I think that have gotten better over the years. And so it's not such a drop off like it was 15, 20 years ago, of not being in Portland.
Yep. Yeah. And Bend has a certain like density of like former founders, successful people, former VCs. Like there's a lot of those folks in that community that makes it attractive to folks to visit as well. One of the other things that a couple of people have highlighted, it didn't dawn on me until they said it, and I'm like, oh yeah, of course, is like we also used to have a bunch of like national or global events that would come here on a regular basis, like gigantic tech events or XOXO or whatever, that a whole bunch of people would descend upon Portland.
Right.
And then a lot of those people would go like, oh, I never thought about Portland before, but I'm kind of liking it. And we, that's almost something we need to cultivate again. But that, to your strategy point, like people are already booked out through 2028 with the venues they're going to show up with, for major events. But like we need to get that going. And like we also need to build some of our own stuff from scratch. Like maybe it's time for a pitch black national gathering, bring a bunch of people in, like have a bigger to do, like, but things like that we can control to some extent and promote. Like it might be time just for Portland to step up and create some of the.
Yeah, I mean, especially June to the end of September, or sorry, July 5th to the end of September. Those that know will know as they hear that. And get people here for whatever reason, because there's no better place to be in the country,
right,
in the summer than here. Period. Yeah. No bugs, great food, no humidity.
Right.
30 minutes from whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Does not matter what outdoor activity you want to do. You got get there.
Yeah. And we got the gear that you can.
Yep.
That you're going to use for it.
Yeah.
We've been talking about doing a Black Film Festival.
Ooh, nice.
With having the people that we have here in the film industry, but also Wyden and Nike.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of people that I think we could leverage something like that.
I'm laughing because like Tim Williams, who's the governor's board of film and television, like his equivalent to pitch competitions or film festivals. Like they're like prior to the pandemic, he was like, if we have one more film festival. But I think now it's a very different game in that regard.
It's I talked with the gentleman that runs the Bend Film Festival, and that's the only one in Oregon that gets you on the under Oscar consideration.
Oh, nice.
For short films.
Yep.
And it was fascinating learning about the business side.
That's so cool.
How I didn't know a film festival would work. Yeah. And then like who it's for and how you're using venues and like, you got to have really great audio at all the spaces where people are watching the movies.
Right. Yeah, of course.
And so I think there's things like that where we could, triple down on our strengths. You know what I mean? And part of our strengths is here in the summer. Yeah, I don't think the winter is as bad as oftentimes people think.
No.
But we definitely shine in the summer. How do we maximize the hell out of that?
Yeah.
And also do more events outside of Portland. Like, yeah, I feel like we should take over what's going on in the Gorge and do a lot more events between here and Hood River.
Yep.
And there's a huge opportunity there.
Yeah. And the coast is always like, it doesn't matter what time of year, it's good to be on the coast kind of thing. And the great restaurants are here year round. Like it's like, we have that to leverage as well. Yeah. I think there's like, we've talked about it before. We talk about it a lot is like, Portland is just never stuffed up to own that narrative, and like we just kind of like that's something we need to put some time and energy into.
I mean, I'll go back to the book, startup communities, feeders and leaders.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like when things aren't going well, we look to the city and we're like, hey, what are you going to do? But if we really took a hard look at like what makes Portland, it's always been people in the private sector or people in the arts community and whatever that have always led the things. And, the public sector's come in and helped, but it was never like, oh man, the city did that one thing in 75, that game changer.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true. And so how do we, galvanize people right now to come and have like more of a concise ask for the public sector and the role that they could play? And the one I would give is like buy local. Like, right, your budget's down $100 million. Make sure every paper clip, piece of tissue, whatever that you're buying from a company here in Portland.
Yep.
Oregon, worst case.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's easy to discount that where you're like, oh, it's just a buck here or there, but like it's keeping that dollar circulating through the community is a really meaningful dynamic here.
Our city's budget, $7 billion bucks. Imagine how much of that goes towards paper, catering, right? Whatever, super boring things. Yeah. But imagine if the person that's making the daily decision on where that money goes is like, oh, I've got this list of 15 Portland businesses that can all do this.
Yep.
Boom.
Yep.
Just remove friction. And I think that's one of the, I would love to see, and I thought we might get there with what was happening with the tech pledge and some of the coalescing that was happening in the late 2010s.
Yeah.
Was like an advisory committee of private sector folks building companies, doing really cool making of tools and stuff like that, that advises the city and is able to go and say like, hey, that thing that you guys can't get right with permitting, like, dude, we solved that 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like, let me introduce you to this thing called Zapier and like how it can just like blow your mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that takes relationships and trust.
Yep.
Right. And time and
right.
You know, we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah. But I do appreciate you reinforcing that, like, putting the criticism on the electeds or the public entities, like, it's got to be founder led to make it.
You don't get to complain if showing up. I mean, to your point, like,
yeah.
I think showing up is the most important thing. Like, I was at city council yesterday.
Yep.
And like, you don't have to even say anything, but if you're not showing up and listening and taking notes and like gathering information around how the sausage is made,
yep,
you don't get to complain from the parking lot.
Right.
Sorry.
Right. Yeah. It's all about research. Just got to do your research. Got to show up.
Research and get to know people and, you know, again, curiosity.
Yep.
Is there anything that you're really excited about?
I'm excited about, like, it's one of those, when the economy is tanking or not doing well is generally when the best interesting things start.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm excited about right now around here, because it feels like I've been trying to describe this to people. Like, this is probably my third downturn I've experienced. Like, in the first time, it was the .com days, and I was just young and naive, and I was like, oh, everything goes up and to the right forever. Right. And then it crashed. I'm like, what happened there? And then the second time went through it, and I was like, oh, the first time was just a fluke. It'll definitely go up into the right. And then, you know, it all fell apart again. And this is the first time where I've been like, eyes open. I recognize where we are. I recognize what the cycle is. I have no idea how long the bubble will last once it begins,
right.
But I know that dynamic, and I know how things happen. And right now it feels like we're not even at the starting line. We're at the, like, people are stretching out and milling around, waiting to move up to the starting line.
Yeah.
Like, so that's exciting to me, because like, this is the time that everyone has the most potential to do something interesting and meaningful, because even the smallest thing starting right now could be huge when the economy comes back. So like, getting stuff started, that's what's exciting to me right now.
Yeah. It's fascinating how in our lives we do investing and like putting ourselves into things very different than we do the rest of our lives. And I remember when I was training to become a financial advisor, one of the guys I talked to, he was explaining like how people are terrible investors. Mm-hmm. And he showed me data from this organization called Dalbar, and they looked at the S&P 500, and like over this 10-year span, it did 12%. And then people investing in the S&P 500 over the same time frame did like 6%. And I was like, well, how does that work? And he explained, he was like, look, like, people time the market. And we shop at Nordstrom's different than how we invest in Nordstrom's. And I was like, tell me what you mean. And he was like, all right, well, if Nordstrom stock is 20% up, what do?
I'm going to hold it.
People go and buy it. People don't buy it, right? People go and buy it. And then when Nordstrom stock is down 20%, what do?
It's got to get back.
People don't sell it. And so they kill returns. But if you're going and buying clothes at Nordstrom's and you walk in, they're like, everything's 20% more today.
Right.
Fuck you. I'm going somewhere else, right?
Exactly.
Everything's 20% off. Oh, I'm buying it, right? Because you know, like, Nordstrom's is Nordstrom's, right?
Yeah.
So why don't you do the same thing with their stock? And so I think as people start to understand that this is always cycles, what are the opportunities in down cycles? What are the opportunities and threats in up cycles, right?
Yeah.
Right now, I'm buying this company in Beaverton stock as much as I can.
Yep.
Because I've never seen it below 60. Like, sure. I don't know, last time it was under $60.
Yeah.
It's under $60.
Yeah.
And so how do you see cycles as opportunities as opposed to like a blank slate or a broad brush of like, oh, things are shitty?
Yeah. Yeah. No one wants my investment strategy. Like, I invest like a gambler where I'm like, I'm down, but I'm sure if I just hang on, it'll come back at some point. And if I'm up, I'm like, well, I can just hang on a little longer. Maybe it'll creep up a little bit more. You know? No. Not good strategy about that. All right, man. Thank you for the time. Thanks for spending time outside in this beautiful park. Perfect weather for this Corvo stuff. And obviously we'll probably have a part 2 and part 3 and part 12. But anything you want to share before? Tell people about the podcast. Where do they find the pitch? Because you're killing it on the podcast.
Pitch Black Podcasts. We just reached double figures episodes. Some of the most brilliant, exciting, awesome people that I know really well, people that I don't know well at all, but they're all doing amazing things. That's my thing that I'm excited about is like, we are collecting some really dope ass people in Portland right now, like a Rhodes Scholar that could literally be whatever he wants and lived in London and he could do whatever. He's like, no, Portland right now. This is it. Yep. This is that moment. It's like, wait, what? You're a Rhodes Scholar. You clearly know more than me.
Yeah.
All right. I believe you. And so Pitch Black Podcast, we drop an episode every Fridays. Come check us out, meet some dope folks, get excited about what's going on in community. And then, we'll see people on stage come this August. So
And Portland Center Stage
Armory, the Armory.
Yeah. Cool.
Our biggest venue yet in Portland. So
Gonna be good. Show up.
get your tickets quick.
All right, man.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Love you.